morning. How's everyone this morning? Thank you, Mia. We appreciate you and everything that you do with our vets. We have a very, very special interview this morning, and I'm just so pleased to have our three guests here on stage. Before we get started, we are going to cover a few things that people have been asking about, which specifically relates to the market direction, right? It's a new year, and I don't know if you feel it, but there's a little change in the air. And so before we get started on this interview, I just wanted to share my thoughts and also ask our panel here if they have their own thoughts on where the market is headed. So this is my 20th year in real estate, and Patty joins us with 35 years in real estate, and both Nicole and Gary with about 11 and 12 years in real estate. Yeah. So we've all been through market cycles. It's just part of what we do here in California, right? We go up and then we come down. So the most important thing is when the market's changing is to be aware of that and to make transitions into your business before the change actually happens. So whenever we see data or a bellwether going on that suggests a potential market change, our radar screen goes up and then we dive a little deeper. We hope that we're wrong, and we hope that the market keeps climbing up and away. But in the event that it's going to soften or market time on listings is going to be extended, we just want to teach you and share from our experience, the 2 or 3 market cycles that we've been through, what to do, okay? So before we get started, I also did want to share a little bit about our core value this month. This month we have a core value of natural and spiritual gifts. And that confuses a lot of people. They don't know the difference between the two. And who's sitting before you are 3 individuals that have tremendous natural and spiritual gifts. And when I say that, I say it with conviction because there's natural gifts that we're all born with, right? Those are our talents. Now, you can develop those skills and change your behavioral patterns to increase your talents. But there's also something deeper that I've discovered in my own personal life, and I know the 3 individuals sitting to my left also have as well. And those are spiritual gifts. And those are things that are biblical principles. The more you dig deeper into the Word, into Scripture, and work on those gifts, you manifest those gifts into your life. In this case, they've manifested into their business. So to me, there's no mystery why the 3 of them are so successful. They've applied those gifts, both natural and spiritual, and we're going to be asking them today a series of questions. You all got a copy of these questions, right, on some different topics. And so as you're making notes on that last page, because we will have a Q&A at the end, I want you to really go introspective and start to think about what are some of the gifts that you have, or maybe some of the things that you struggle with. Here's a prime opportunity for those who have overcome some of those challenges, and ask the question, what is holding you back from going to the next level, all right? So just a brief overview, what we will be covering. The agent's sales history, their personal questions, generating personal questions relating to their business, generating business, client retention and referrals, coaching and advising, technology and competition, work-life balance, time management, reputation, presentations, prospecting and farming, communication, and their career and reflection, and their career moving forward. At the end, again, we're going to have an open-ended discussion. There'll be an opportunity for all of you to ask a question or make some comments. The final thing I'll cover before we start with our interviews is, as many of you know, the last few weeks has been very important in the Christian world. Very, very renowned evangelist passed away. His name's Billy Graham. And this week is Holy Week. We're coming up on Easter, right? Good Friday's just a few days away, and then we have Easter. Now, when you walked in today, there was a card. If you don't have a church that you attend and would like to attend, there is a card waiting for you. And there's a new church that's opened here in Encinitas, and you're welcome to join us. If you currently attend a church, I'm just going to encourage you to invite a friend. Easter's a very, very important day, and it's really the cornerstone of our faith. Now, a friend of mine, David Jeremiah, went to Billy Graham's funeral, and last Sunday he shared a story I thought I would share with all of you. So it is a testimony to the adventure that this man lived. At 87, Billy Graham was in the back of a limousine, and he realized he had never driven a limousine in his life. So he asked the chauffeur kindly if he could pull over and allow him to drive the limousine. Billy Graham got in the limo and got on the interstate, and boy, he just let it go. And a young new state trooper was waiting just down the road. And he passed him by, going 70 miles an hour in a 55-mile zone. The red lights went up, and the state trooper pulled over the limousine. When he got to the window, Billy rolled down the window, and the state trooper immediately knew who he was. And he said, "Sir, if you don't mind, I'd like to go call my supervisor, and I'll be right back." State trooper went back to his car and got on the phone and called the supervisor. He said, "Sir, I pulled over someone important, and I know for special individuals that there's a hall pass, and I just need to know what to do." And the supervisor turned to him and said, "Well, who did you pull over? The governor?" He said, "No, somebody more important than that." "The president?" He said, "Nope, somebody more important than that." I said, "Well, who did you pull over?" He said, "Well, I think I pulled over Jesus, because Billy Graham's a chauffeur." So as we roll in to this Easter weekend, just remember God has a wonderful sense of humor, and He loves each and every one of you. And I want to encourage you to go find out what that love's all about if you don't know. Okay, we're going to get started with our top producer panel. Thank you all for being here. I know your time is very valuable, and you've made time to share with others, which is huge. To give you a little bit of context, I know many of you already know Nicole and Gary. Our guest, Patty Keck, who is joining us, and again, this is just records from our research online, the BRE website, if you will, was licensed in 1983. She has sold many, many, many homes just since 1997. I'm sure it's more than this, because not every home goes into the multiple listing service, but we were able to track down 500 homes with a sales volume of over $400 million, and that's just in the last 20 years. I'm sure it's more than that. So that is a lifetime achievement, Patty. Congratulations. Most real estate companies can't sell that much real estate, so way to go. Nicole and Gary have both been licensed since 2004 and 2005. They have also sold over 100, on their way to 200 homes, and both have $100 million in real estate, again, on track for the same path that Patty is taken this last 35 years. And so this is going to be an interactive session today. We want you not only to learn, again, but to ask questions, and also to listen to the exact methods that they used. Not all of these methods are going to be appropriate for your business, but hopefully they will stimulate you to discover what are the methods that are going to lead you to the same success. So I'm going to start just with your sales history. I'm going to ask all of you to introduce yourself and really just let us know, how did you get into real estate? We covered how long you've been in the business. And if you sell a specific price range or target a certain area, please talk about that. Let's start with you, Patty.
Well, thank you. I actually started selling real estate in 1980, but it wouldn't have been in your records because it was over in Phoenix, Arizona. And if you remember, anybody here, at 1980, interest rates were about 21%. And since I was 11, when I knew that I was going to start selling real estate, I kind of had to go, well, it doesn't matter. This is when I just had gotten out of high school and did not go to college, because I did the math and figured out what it was going to cost me to go to college, and then what I was going to lose in lost income by those 4 years of college. At a very stupidly young age, I mean, I was thinking this kind of stuff. And so over in Phoenix, I started there, and then when I moved out, it just was too hot. I mean, one day alone, I was at an open house. It was 4,000 square feet, and it was about 110 degrees out. And by the time that vacant home got down to 92, it was time to close up. And signs were metal, and I burnt my hands, and the car trunk was metal, and I burnt my hand. And I said, I'm out of here. So that's what got me here to San Diego. And as far as, to answer some of your questions, as far as focusing on a target area, when I started here, it didn't matter. I'd have a listing appointment in Oceanside, and later that afternoon in Nestor, if you know where that is, it's near San Ysidro, because I had a stay-at-home mom calling for me to all the different for sale by owners and stuff. And but now I very, very intentional. It's pretty much Encinitas from the beach to Alevenheim, and I intentionally chose the price point. Average home price has been over $1 million since at least 2000, and I track everything really closely, so we have even addresses and all of that and sales prices of all those, but it's been average over $1 million, and that was an intentional move for obvious reasons. You make more money.
That's excellent.
So.
And how about yourself, Nicole?
I was licensed in 2005, and I started late 2006, and I didn't grow up saying I maybe should have thought about skipping the college part, started earlier. But my dad's a commercial broker, a lot of you know that, and I had moved back to San Diego after graduating and working a couple years in San Antonio. And I don't really remember what motivated me, but I remember walking into the garage and I found my dad cleaning his car, which is what Mazzolas do. And I said, I think I'm going to be a real estate agent. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. I want to do that. And I never looked back. So here I am 13 years later. And I've been with AARE almost since day one. And price point wise, my average price point tends to be over $1 million. Not as long as Patty's has been over $1 million. But I focus, I would say, downtown through Carlsbad, a little bit inland. And my target market tends to be first-time home buyers or move-up buyers, people that I've sold and then are buying their next property and selling their home that they live in.
Very good. Gary?
Well, I was actually voted, my family actually voted me to be a real estate agent. This was back in 2003. I remember it was at Christmas time, and I don't know, we were opening presents, and they said, you know what, we need a real estate agent in our family. We've got a surfer, a filmmaker, a commercial real estate agent. Gary, this is what we want you to do. And I had a nice, I don't want to say cushy, but I had a corporate position that I had a car and allowance. And I thought, well, this is kind of crazy, but okay, I'll do it. So I took the test, I passed it, and I carried 2 pagers for a little while until I figured out this is what I wanted to do. But the first house I sold was in El Cajon. It was for $1.3 million. And I thought, well, this is easy. I'm just going to do that. So I think I went in the next day and fired myself and said, well, I'm done. At that time, I worked for a company called Avnet, which is electronics distributor in San Diego. And so I never looked back, and here I am after 188 homes and 1 mobile home. My average price, and I think the mobile home took it down, we're right around $550K, $550,000. And I try and kind of keep it on the coastline, but my clients are all over. You know, I've sold from Alpine to Carlsbad, so I really try and stay on the coast. I love the coast. I serve churches on the coast. I like to keep the family on the coast, but it doesn't always end up that way.
Thank you for sharing. So the next set of questions are actually personal questions. I want to give the audience context and help them identify really what drives you. You know, why are you doing this? What is your motivation to sell homes? Some of the other things you can share are what personality traits help you stand out as an agent, what you do that you believe struggling agents do not do, what helps you keep a positive attitude when the going gets tough, and if you could point to one thing that you credit for your success, and share with us about your willingness, as I referenced earlier, to stop what you're doing, like you are right now, and share and help others. So any of those topics, Patty, we're going to start again with you. Maybe share a little bit about what keeps driving you after 35 years. Patty started when she was 10 years old. To keep going.
Well, first of all, I thought this was going to be the last chair, so I was strategically sitting here. So
Sorry.
We were all given these questions ahead of time, so I've really had a chance to think about this. And there's no great answer that just sounds so eloquent and all of that. It just really comes down to two things. And that is, I'm extremely competitive against myself, more so than others. The goals that I set are for my own self. It's not to beat somebody else or to do something, although there is that in there. That competitiveness comes with all the sports that I played and stuff like that. And then the other is consistency. You have to get up every morning knowing that there is no boss over your shoulder that's telling you and checking up on you and trying to figure out, or make you do this or that. It's you. And until somebody really understands as a self-employed person and as a realtor, is that, and quite frankly, your clients really aren't even that. It is you. And so that thought process and that consistency in everything that I do is probably the single two things that lead to success and to drive and to continuously over the years a consistent success.
Excellent, excellent. Is there anything you do specifically that you feel struggling agents do not?
Yes. I'm very consistent and I'm very competitive.
Concise.
Yeah.
Good. How about you, Nicole?
Just the word that Patty was saying, consistency, I think that's the key for me in the business. I've never been the best or the smartest or did the best. In school, I was, I struggled. I really did. I had a horrible time with math. I remember when I thought about real estate, I was like, I hope there's not a lot of math. And to this day, do not ask me to write an offer in front of the client. I'm like shaking. I'm like, I'm going to go home. I'm just going to sit down and I'll get back to you. So, that being said, the consistency for me is I do what I say I'm going to do. My yes means yes. My no means no. And my clients have to know that. And if I make a mistake, I'm accountable. I'm sorry. I said I was going to do X. I didn't. I really apologize. And then I do it. So that for me would be, I think the one thing I feel sets me apart. There's a lot of, oh yeah, I'll get that to you, or I'm going to send this, or I'll follow up on that. And our job often is babysitting in real estate, and no one needs to babysit me in a transaction. My clients don't, the escrow company, I babysit, we babysit a lot. No one needs to babysit me. I put a lot of pressure on myself as well, but I think the other thing is, for me, you don't have to be number one or a top producer to be at the top of your game in this business. And that's where I've had a mind shift myself over the last probably year or so. I want to be at the top of my game for myself and for my clients. It doesn't necessarily mean number one. And you can serve your clients phenomenally without having to have all that pressure of, I've got to do more, be more, really focus on what you want. And I think it really translates to the client, and they're going to be thrilled. They're going to be thrilled with your service.
Good. Gary?
Really easy for me. I just want to eat. I want a roof over my head for my family. I want to eat. When people ask you what drives you, well, I get up early every day, and we'll get into time management later, but I've always got up early. And I find that everybody has the same amount of time. It's just a matter of what they do with that time. So I would say, my motivation has always been God first and family and then business. And if your priorities are set right, everything will fall into place. And it's the same principles. Even when I had a job, right, where somebody was watching over me, I know God's watching over me, and he'll pretty much take care of my needs. Let's see, what was the other?
Talk about your willingness to help others, because you're very generous with your time. You're always early.
Yeah.
You serve others, not only your clients,
Yeah.
but really anybody you come in contact with.
That's actually a fault too, getting early to an appointment. Sometimes I'm too early, and I'm like, I got to sit in my car for a half hour, wait for my client. I'll text him, hey, I'm here. Where are you? But no, I've always loved to serve, and when I was in college, I worked for a small company called Sioux Plantation. I don't know if you've heard of it, but there was only one or two at that time, and that's where I learned to serve. I was always they're picking up a tray or whatever it is, you know, helping people, you know, get through the line, serving the food. So I found that was going to be my niche, no matter what job or what company or what corporation or what I did. I wanted to serve people. So it came easy. So there's, I think everybody's taken tests to see where, you know, what their thing is, and services is my thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's move on to generating business. I know this is very important for all of you. How do you generate most of your business? You know, where do your new leads and your new relationships come from? Have your lead sources changed over time? And if so, why? And again, what would you say is that one thing that you do that keeps bringing in fresh new leads or relationships? And finally, when your business is slow, what do you find is the most successful action for you to take to create new activity? Patty?
Things have changed over the last almost 4 decades, and it used to be that open houses were not very effective. Basically, you could rely on an ad and paper and signs, and that was it. Now I would have to say that they are probably the single biggest lead generating to actually be in front of buyers and sellers. When I'm primarily a listing agent, so when I'm holding open houses, I'm not as much looking for the buyer, and in this market, the buyer is going to come for the most part, but what I'm looking for is, you know, is the sellers. I market to the sellers, the neighbors, and if they're coming into an open house, people are busy. They're probably thinking about it selling, whether it be in, you know, 6 days or 60 or whatever it is. So really good lead follow-up with them. There's an art to getting their contact information and getting it correctly, and I don't use a sign-in sheet. Although I think now some of our open houses are so busy that you have to have a backup as a sign-in sheet, just because if you can't talk to everybody. But just you have just a few minutes to set that rapport, and in those few minutes you know that they're looking at other open houses, whether they're a neighbor or if they're a buyer. And if I could say anything, is practice that art, is to how to just very genuinely and nicely get all the information. I have found that if you have something to give, information to give, they're much more likely to give you the correct information. I know some people offer raffle or anything like that. I don't do that, though it's not a bad idea. When I am usually trying to give them something, I'll find out what they're looking for, if that particular house doesn't, or even if it does. And what I'll say is, you know, I get a lot of properties coming on the market that haven't come on yet. And what you're describing to me sounds really close to what a listing appointment I've got coming up in the next few days. Would you like to hear about it? They can't give you the information fast enough. So, and you have to really have listings coming on to say that, and you also have to know what else is coming on. So networking with other agents, finding out what is coming on. It doesn't have to be your listing when you're talking to them, or that's something that you have coming on. So I would definitely encourage you to network, finding out what's coming on before with Zillow and everything, people know as fast as we do what's hit the market, the MLS. Staying in contact with my database, and I can probably today tell you more things not to do that I didn't do or should have done than what I do. So I don't even think I really consistently followed up with my database until probably the year 2000. And prior to that, there was probably another 400 homes that were sold before that. So I lost out on a lot with that. The one thing that I did do was every year I'd sent out a family, personal, really well done Christmas card. And these were for people that I'd been, 15 years. I hadn't talked to them in 15 years, and I'd send that card out. And that alone, I can't tell you how much business just that alone did. They saw my kids grow up and all of this, but I didn't talk to them, and that's where I'm saying don't do that, do the call thing. And I thought one day, I had that aha moment, and I said, if I'm doing Christmas cards once a year, what if I actually started hitting them with emails and with phone calls and with personal notes and with that type of thing. So in that point in time, I really changed up my business, and it made a big difference on going after that. And quite frankly, if you say, well, why wouldn't you have done that before? That's really stupid. It was stupid, but I was busy. I was busy getting new clients, and I was busy selling, and I had 2 babies that were born in 96 and 98. And so that's why I didn't. And I would encourage you, if I had to say anything to do now, is every sale you have, stay in touch with those people consistently. As far as generating business, I think those are just, I think you guys are going to have some good tips too, so I won't take them all. And
No, take them.
take them. Where do I get most of my new leads and relationships from? It's repeat and referral. It should be, in my opinion, our biggest source of resource. I do not subscribe to Yelp, Zillow, all of the lead generating things that you can buy. I say no so many times a day, on phone calls. And if we could figure out a way to keep our numbers where, it's like to the point where you don't answer the phone anymore because it's an ad call. And so I may be changing up my voicemail to recognize that, so that the clients that are calling know that I'll call them right back because of that. I haven't figured that out yet, but that'll be my next thing, because have you guys been on an appointment and you're talking to somebody and your phone rings and you don't recognize the number and you think, I really need to get to that because you want those referrals. So we got to figure out a way to get around that.
I've got an app for you. I'll give it to you later, how to
Perfect.
check that out.
Perfect. See? Ding. Okay.
No, good.
Have the lead sources changed over time? Well, we go back to the open house, yes. I think that it's just past clients and referrals are really emphasized so much now, and because it works. So I would definitely do that. And what would I say my one thing I do to keep new, fresh leads coming in? I'm going to sound like a broken record. I go back to those past clients and pick up the phone and start calling, reaching out to them. We have a myriad of different ways that we stay in contact with them, and it's not just one thing, but they are getting touches from us in a bunch of different areas. And then when my business is slow, what do I find the most successful action? Prayer. When I'm slow, it just drops me to my knees. Sometimes I just think, okay, God, you're just letting me be slow again so that I get back to those fundamentals. But I think that hitting up on as many open houses as you can when you're slow will just really generate leads faster than anything else, whether it's your listing or somebody else's. But make that open house count. Make sure it's in an area that you want to work, with buyers in a price range that you want to work. When I said earlier that I chose a price point of over $1 million because you make more money, it's really not true. My husband said, Patty, why are you selling this price point versus this price point? Is the percentage the same? And I said, yes. And he goes, well, that just doesn't make sense. And I said, well, I'm selling around where we live. And it just seems to be the natural, my neighbors and friends and people like that. So you know what he said? Well, let's move. And we did. And we kept moving up and up and up. And so that's why my price point grew as well.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Good words of wisdom there. Nicole?
Most of my business, all of it, is referral at this point, which is a great blessing. And the one thing that I'm focusing on as we all sit and go, is this the year the market's going to turn? Is it next year? We've all been thinking this is too good to be true, and it just continues. But what I'm doing is diving really deep into my relationships with my clients right now. If I haven't talked to that client in the last 3 months, that's not my client. And one of the mistakes I think we all make, we get busy and, oh yeah, they would definitely call me. And, I'm lucky I haven't been burned a whole lot in the past, but I love to tell, I've told Gary this story. I was doing my pop buys, Karen Schwan, a couple Christmases ago, and there I was with my Christmas tree and my toffee, and I'm all in a good mood, and I'm trotting up to my client's door, and I'm like, is that a lockbox? Oh no. And I just kind of took my tree and my chocolates and turned around and went back to the car, and I was all feeling sorry for myself, and I thought, you know what? I haven't talked to that person in probably 2 years, even though they had referred me business, and I thought, what a lost opportunity. And that's what your database is. It's an opportunity, but you have to pick up the phone. I have to pick up the phone. Like Patty said, every time I know what to do when it's slow. You pick up the phone. You call your clients. You stay top of mind. They refer you business. It's not rocket science. But I get in my own head, you know, oh, I don't know, and I haven't taught, but that is what I'm really working on this year, is diving really deep into those relationships, getting to know the client. And it takes time, going to dinner, having lunch, following up, sending a hand. Every time I have a phone call with a client, I send a handwritten thank you note. The second I get a referral, I call that client, thank you so much, I just want to let you know I really appreciate you. I cannot tell you how much I value your trust in me. I'm going to treat this person like an absolute rock star. I never take your business for granted. I tell my clients that all the time. I never take you for granted. I'm so thankful. And they love to hear that. Also telling them, you know, I think our clients think, oh, you're so busy. And I always cringe when I know you're so busy, but I have this friend and I wondered if I could have her call you. And gosh, you know, I'm never too busy for your referrals, we all say at the end of our emails. But it's reminding them that referrals are the lifeblood of my business, and take those opportunities when they do send you a referral to say how much it means to you and how much it really impacts your business. I want my clients to know, like, I don't buy leads. It's not happening. I'm gonna, like, Meriwether and I are gonna starve if people don't refer me clients. So that is, I think the one thing I do is I really pour into my past clients. It takes time, it takes money, but it comes back in spades every time. Let me read one more thing. I mean, I think that's really, I mean, and pick up the phone. That's what I talk a lot about the things my dad has taught me. He is a total dinosaur, just all by himself. Do not come to his office if you're a title person. Like, don't lose his number. No website, no business cards, nothing. And it's relationship. It's all just get out from behind the computer, as Gary would say, leave your house. Make those contacts. Be in touch with people one-on-one. It's so valuable. It reminds me that, like Patty was saying, we don't have to, oh, I should be doing this and I should be doing all this on Facebook and Zillow, and I should buy this lead and I should have this coach and I should do that and sign up for that program and maybe I should go there. No, it's just talk to your clients, love on them, pour into them, spend your time with people who know, like, and trust you. Otherwise, for me, it's exhausting. I don't want to chase new business. I won't do this. I can't. I have to be one-on-one. So that's my gem.
Thank you for sharing. And just pause a moment for the audience as you're making your notes on the last page there. You have an opportunity to write down questions. They're covering a lot of what they do. And some of the questions you may pose at the end here is how they do what they do with specifics. We covered a lot on referrals, and actually the next section here is client retention and referrals. Gary, if you could pick up, I think we've emphasized referrals and the importance of staying in touch with the clients, but there's a few questions here that are very uncomfortable for agents to ask. For example, do you directly ask your clients for referrals? If so, what do you say? If not, why don't you ask them for referrals? Another one that was discussed here that maybe you could touch on is, how do you maintain relationships when you have a growing database? What Patty was challenged with, and which now both of you are challenged with. Once you've sold 100 or 200 homes, that's a lot of relationships. Yeah. How do you stay in touch with all those people?
Yeah, I would say as far as retaining clients, I think that's the first question. Is, believe it or not, I've used Tempo for many years, and as soon as I get a client, whether it's an open house or whatever, I put them on Tempo right away. I put them on a campaign, find out what they're looking for, maybe several different searches, and they basically stay on Tempo until they either opt out or they die, one of the two. They're on it, and when you log in and you see that, oh, this client's about ready to expire, do you want to, I click it, yeah, they're going to get that. And I find that even after somebody's bought a house, they want to know what their property is worth. Yeah. So they stay on those emails because they want to see what the market's doing. And a lot of times they'll call me back and say, oh, you've been sending me this, and I think we want to sell just because we want to make money, or whatever it is. So
do you ask them directly for referrals? Do you call them and ask them? to refer you business?
Usually I'm talking about other things like their family, how's things going, and then the conversation leads to, well, how's the market? Where do you see the market going?
Okay.
Because they know I'm a realtor. That's a no-brainer. So they're always asking me, you know, what's going on with the market? And then I explain to them, oh, you know, this is a great time to, you know, maybe not buy but sell. And they go, oh gosh, you know, I know some kids are getting ready to you know, they want to sell their property. Can you help them out? So I don't have to ask. They'll usually ask me. So.
And is there anything you do specifically as far as methods that you use to take care of the clients after the close of escrow, whether that might be client get-togethers or parties or pop-bys like Nicole referenced on an annual basis?
Yeah, pretty similar with Nicole. I do a lot of lunches, a lot of breakfast, a lot of lunches. I like to take my clients out because I like to eat. They like to eat. It's a great, you know, it's a great common bond, breaking bread with people. So I usually find out, you know, where they like to go and take them there. So that's, and thankfully, a lot of my clients, and I do have, my database I use is Real Geeks and Tempo, so it's a combo between the two. But I do find people remember me, and they do see me because I do post on Facebook, and I post on Twitter, and a lot of different areas like LinkedIn, so they are seeing things that pop up with my face on it. So it's almost like a Coke ad. You keep seeing the same thing over and over. And so it's kind of just putting in the back of their mind, well, Gary's still doing real estate. It's been 14 years. He's still at it. I better call him.
Very good. Well, let's move on. We're going to move on to the coaching and advising. Coaching. I'm going to ask all of you if you have a coach. If not, it could be a personal business advisor. It doesn't have to be necessarily an actual coach. If you do, who it is and how they have benefited your career. If you don't, you can pass or explain why you don't have a coach. And if you do have a coach, also share with the audience how often you meet, you know, what the format is, if it's a 45-minute session, a 1-hour session. And again, if you don't have a specific coach, maybe it's an advisor, a business advisor that you've had in your career and how they've helped you out. So Patty, would you like to talk about that?
Over the span of my career, I've done the Buffini coaching, and I remember, gosh, I just sound so old when I throw dates out there, but in 1993, it was a kind of a pivotal part in my life, and I hired a life coach, and I cannot tell you how much that person just helped me. And not because he gave any great advice, it just slowed me down long enough to really think, what do I want? And even to the point where what house did I want to buy? I was in that transition and all that stuff. And so I have a very, very strong belief in coaching, but honestly, I can tell you that it has not been something that I've done consistently. Currently, I have 2 different coaches, but not helping me to sell real estate. They're helping me with my exit plan and to really be able to, we'll get into this with some of the other questions later, but just how I'm going to turn over the business and allow it to, or cause it to really prosper for Rachel, who will be talking about, who will be taking it over and taking it forward. So ironically, coaching is something that I want to get into, and mentorship in my encore career, meaning that once I've kind of, after 40 years, you know, it's going to be 40 years in 2020, I kind of want to do something different, and that's something, so I have a heart for it. Other than these questions, as you all have too, you know, what do I feel that coaching has done for my career? Because I haven't used it consistently enough, I can't really tell you that it's made a big impact. When I did do the Brian Buffini coaching, and I am not opposed to that at all, if you're a person that doesn't track your stuff really well, I felt that it was a real tracking thing. Now for me, that took me away from what I do. I was spending too much time being accountable to somebody else that I really didn't need. So it was, for me, it was counterproductive.
Very good piece of advice, and it sounds like the life coach had tremendous impact.
Life coach, somebody that goes beyond the numbers, and helps me think consistently. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be next year? And let's help you get there.
A little
That
vision
would,
casting.
Yes,
right?
that would be the type of coaching I would seek out if I had to give you advice. Unless you're a person that is not self-motivated. And if you're not self-motivated, I'm not real sure why you're here. So.
Amen.
Yeah.
Nicole?
Fair enough. I just started coaching about 6 months ago, and I signed up because not necessarily, I was at a place in my career I was feeling a little bit of burnout. So, how do I keep this going forever? Can it keep going forever? A lot of noise in my own head. And I wanted to be, like I'd said earlier, I really wanted to be at the top of my game. And I went kind of on a whim to a seminar. I'm not very impulsive, but I was like, sure, I'll go. And went to a seminar, and it's the core, and I really liked the people there. I felt like these are, really, really great people. I liked how they were running their businesses. So I signed up to learn and improve and really implement some systems into my business because I wanted more structure. And we talk about systems all the time. And if you have systems and you have structure in your business, when the market does shift, correct, decline, dive, go up, whatever you want to call it, you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to write it out. That's how it's working for me, at least. So I meet twice a month I should be meeting with my coach right now, but I'm here today, so she excused me. But we talk twice a month, and it's a lot of accountability. It's very uncomfortable, but I love it because I'm surrounded by other members in my coaching group who are just at the top of their game. And I'm learning so much from them. And it's uncomfortable, and it's not my favorite, but I wanted to grow. I don't necessarily want to sell, well, I don't want to say I don't want to sell more real estate, but that's not my main goal. I really wanted to improve myself and my business, so that's why I signed up.
Thank you for sharing. And Gary, I'm not sure that you do coaching, and if you don't, it's okay to pass.
Yeah, but I can just add one thing. You'd mentioned Brian Buffini. When I first started in real estate, I had no idea what to do. So Brian Buffini did have a nice system. I didn't get in the coaching program, but I did get their package where they send you these cards, and you're supposed to, every time you meet somebody, send out a card like Nicole does. And they started like piling up on my desk. And I go, okay, this is not going to be for me. But as far as coaching, I'm pretty self-motivated. I get up early in the morning. I know exactly what I need to do, and I do it. And that's it. So I think I'm coachless. So put that, somebody make a note of that.
Very good,
Very
very
Andrew,
good.
before you move on, can I
Yes,
say
please.
one thing? Where it talks about advisors that have been essential to my success, I will have to say that mentors, and I consider a mentor not somebody necessarily one-on-one, but with today's technology, I mean, if I'm not on my phone in my car, I'm listening to a podcast. And if I'm at the gym, I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to educational podcasts. Brian, I think we've lost that fundamental ability to sell. And if you can do anything, is get back to, and that doesn't change over time. Tommy Hopkins and all those old guys, they are priceless. If you can get some of that, Brian Tracy, really good. So Tom Ferry has kind of taken over from Mike Ferry. Mike was a little abrasive and all of that. Later, when we get into that, he had a very instrumental part in a shift for me. But I would just load up with as much, and it doesn't just have to be about real estate. I mean, I listen to personal finance podcasts a lot. I listen to spiritual podcasts a lot. And that, I mean, we've never had the opportunity to get so much information in our ear as easily as it is today. And it wasn't like that 20 years ago. So you'd have to be sitting there with a book or CDs or tapes. And so I really have to say that if you can just constantly be growing, your business will constantly grow.
Glad you shared that, and you touched a point that we've talked about one-on-one, about the shiny objects and all the noise, right? A lot of information, which is good and bad. You have to filter through that information to decide what it is that you're going to listen to, what it is that you're going to follow. Going back to the basics is something that you referenced, and those are those timeless sales principles. No matter what technology does, no matter what competition comes, the fact is we're in the relationship business, we're in a sales business that requires prospecting, that requires having education ongoing, not just once and then you got it, right? So good segue into technology and competition. That's our next section here. We're not going to spend a tremendous amount of time here because there's so much noise or information already out there and shiny objects for people to chase. We're hopefully going to discourage some of that with our answers here. But I'm going to ask the panel, with the new changes coming from tech companies like Redfin and Zillow attempting to take the market share from agents, what's your plan to sustain your business long term? Are you worried about discount brokers? Do you reduce your commissions to compete with these agencies? And what do you say to your sellers if questioned about paying a full commission to help them see the value of your service? And finally, where do you see the market going and industry going in the next few years with this technology? And who or what would you be the most concerned with as far as competition or technology? Want to start, Patty?
This excites me because what I'm going to say to you is probably different than what you'd expect and different than what you said earlier in the very beginning. This market right now, well, it's kind of like the weather. If you don't like the market, just wait a few days, it's going to change. But I can't wait for this market to change. I can't wait for interest rates to start their climb. I can't wait to just kick Redfin in the butt and get them out of here, as well as, you know, all the other discount brokers. But they're no different. Nothing's changed. It's just got a different name. Used to be I Pay One. Before that, it was Help You Sell. I remember when Help You Sell came out, I panicked. Oh my gosh, they're helping for sell by owners and nobody's going to need us. They still need us. And when I talk about learning skills, whether you deal only by referrals or you're meeting new people, you are still a salesperson and you need to have those skills. You need them in negotiations. If you haven't read a book on negotiations in the last 6 months or a year, get it, read it, because it's not changing. You just have to stay up on your skills. But when I say this, it's you got to show value, because if you're not worth any more than 1%, then they're going to go to 1% or 0.5%. We're the only state in the United States that I'm aware of that charges 5% versus 6%. Even, and they say, well, our real estate prices are so much higher, that's why we can get away with 5%. No, New York, Manhattan Beach, so, or not Manhattan Beach, but Manhattan Island is much, it's not even Manhattan Island, is it? No.
Manhattan.
Manhattan, New York.
That's right.
They're at 6%. So do you know when it went from 6% to 5%? It went in the early 2000s, 2004, 2003, right around there. It overnight shifted from 6, it felt like overnight shifted. And why did it shift? It shifted because we were not strong enough to fight for the commission, and all these agents came in there and they would do it for less and they would do it for less, and we let them. And I say we let them, it's because we caved and we said, okay, everybody else is doing it 5%. It's just right around the corner, 4%, if we don't stand up and show some value of what we're worth. So when you asked on the last question, I didn't answer it, why am I here? Where do I feel like giving? We have a business that we need to protect, and we have to be professional and show value and be worth a $50,000 commission. I mean, guys, we're paid a lot. We better be worth it and show them that that's the case. And Redfin is spread out so thin that those agents are on staff, as you know, and they don't have time to give service. So when it goes from a 6-day market time to a 60-day market time, and they call their Redfin agent and says, well, what are you going to do to sell the house? Well, we're giving you a discount. A discount of what? You're not selling the house. That's what I want to come back. I want us to actually have to market the house, show our skills, because that will protect our industry. And the top 20% of the people that just got in the business, and all those are just going to go by the wayside really quickly. You said 25,000 agents in San Diego County?
That's right.
I thought it was 17,500. Overnight, it must have grown another 5,000. And, you know, you see them. The 80-20 rule of 20% of the people doing 80% of the business. In 2008 and 9 and 10, it became the 90-10 rule. 10% of the agents were doing 90% of the business. It has shifted now to where it's more like 60-40, because there's so many of the, hey, I'll do it for free if you'll just sign up with me. I mean, that's almost how ridiculous it's gotten. So if I got off on a tangent, I apologize. Am I worried about discount brokers? No, I'm not, because they will go away. But be aware of them and show your value. you are what you're worth, right? I mean, what you think you're worth is what you're worth. So if you take a 1% commission, that's probably what you're worth. If you stick true on the 5 and 6%, and I admire these agents that are still getting 6%. I mean, that's a skill, and that's who I want to talk to and find out, how are you selling that?
She's sitting right there.
Yay.
Thank you for sharing.
She said she's sitting right there. And then one other thing, and I won't take too much time. What do you say to your sellers if questioned about a full commission? The other day, this came up where, you know how Zillow and all of that, the buyers are getting the listings as fast as we are. So a past client, and we've been talking about selling his investment property for quite some time, and he says, Patty, I don't mind paying you the full amount, but I'm not going to pay the buyer's broker. In this case, it was $1.3 million properties, so it was a 5% commission. He says, I'm not paying him 2.5%. And I said, Brian, you really need to. And he goes, why? They're not doing anything. If I pay less, it's still going to be, the buyer is going to say, I want to see that house. And I said, you're right. But this guy, and by the way, know your client's communication skill and what's important to them. This guy is a data guy. Mm-hmm. And so I said, let me just show you the stats on what happens if we discount that buyer's broker side from 2.5 to anything less than that, even 2.4, but anything less than 2.5. Rachel started, if you don't know Rachel Erduser, she's my niece, and she's been with me for almost 10 years, and she's my everything, as far as business goes. And so she did the stats on everything that published less than 2.5%. Did you know that 4% of the homes listed sold with a 2.5% or less? That's small. And of those 2.5 or 4% that sold, their average days on market was like 5 times the average days on the market of the industry. And of those, the list to sale ratio was substantially higher than the average industry. So on that email back to him, that's the only way you can really communicate this type of thing. We did it on email. And then I showed my average days on the market and my list of sales price against the industry. And it was just a whole package, and just sent it to him. And he said, what he said was great. He said that I won't even go into that story, it's too long. But anyway, the point is he listed with us. He says, I don't like it, but I understand it. Thank you for taking the time to share that. Mm-hmm. And so we did it at the 5%. I would rather discount my commission than what goes out to the broker, because when we start discounting that 2.5 what goes out to the buyer's agent, we are really undermining ourselves.
Thank you for sharing the story. It's a real world example. This is going to be a different perspective from both Gary and Nicole, because they're both Redfin partner agents. You've worked with Redfin, have a good working relationship. They've referred you business, mm-hmm. and vice versa. What is your take, and are you concerned? What do you read on the market and technology?
Yeah, I don't think Redfin and Zillow are going to go away. I think you've got the millennials out there that just love to be on the internet, and they will cut you out of the picture if they think they can. So I don't think that's going to go away. I think what Patty said about deepening your relationship with the clients that you have, that's really what you should be after. I am a Redfin partner agent. I get leads. They go to my phone, and basically it'll say, hey, you've got a property, somebody wants to see it, do you want to go out? And that's how I get my buyer leads. So it's been very profitable for me for the past year that I've been doing it, year and a half, I think. And it's kind of like a Real Geeks lead. If you follow up on it and you go after it, you can get it and make a commission. You do have to work pretty hard for that too, because they will run you around if you don't set the rules. But I'm more excited with technology and the competition and myself kind of changing my business. I've always been an internet guy where my leads would come in from Trulia. I used to pay for Trulia leads when it was really Trulia. Now it's Zillow, which I'd canceled. But I did get a lot of leads, and a lot of the clients I have today are from those internet leads. Mm-hmm. So it's servicing them and keeping them happy is how I'm going to continue my business. And I'm really excited about some of the new programs that you've brought forward recently. Is the Generous Giving program. I find that sale, which you know about, was probably the easiest sale I've ever had, because the clients were happy to give the commission because they knew that a portion of that was going to go to their favorite charity. So the sooner I can get more in tune with that program, I would do 90% of my business if I could.
Excellent.
So.
Do you want to add anything, Nicole?
No, I think what Patty said, I was like, yeah, the whole time. So don't be afraid to say no. And I was pointing at Angela a couple of seconds ago because I was talking to her on the phone the other day, and it just came up that, well, I charge 6% on all my listings. And I was like, what? How do you do that? What do you say? And she said, I just do. And I said, well, what do your clients say? And she said, well, they just sign. And I thought, wow. I mean, what a reminder that it's, you having, obviously her clients see her value. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. And I told this kind of funny story before, but I have a very good client who has a startup, and Andrew's, I think, met with him, and he hired the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer, from Redfin. And I was like, oh no, now he's gonna expect, and I got all nervous. Never came up. I've helped them buy and sell multiple homes. He's never mentioned it. So don't be afraid to say no. And I've agonized. I've called Mindy, I've called Gary, what do I do? I've always said no. I did it once, I regretted it, I'll never do it again. And that's how I roll.
Excellent, excellent. These next two sections are work-life balance and time management. We're going to combine them because they actually go hand in hand. So as far as the work-life balance, that's a challenge for many top producers, right? They're very emotionally burnt out sometimes. This business can do that to you, and there can be very stressful escrows or clients. And so how do you mitigate that? When you run into a particular tough situation or a client, what do you do or say to stay above that noise and not get overloaded with stress? How do you avoid that burnout? How do you emotionally detach from those transactions? And really, how do you structure your calendar, right? There's a lot going on. There's meetings, there's events, there's an interview like this, taking care of your clients. You have time for family and vacations. And really, where and what do you do to maintain balance on a daily basis? I think it's easy to look at it over a season and say I was very balanced, but then I got busy. But what is your day-to-day? Again, you can share your calendar if you have a specific schedule that you stick to. And one other thing that's written down here, I think a lot of agents here in our industry, is income-producing activities. So what do you feel are your income-producing activities? Finally, do you have an assistant or a team, and where are you at with delegation? So, Patty, please comment on time management and work-life balance.
So the first one under work-life balance, when you run into a tough situation or client. I have tried to fire clients before. And in one case, I don't know what I was thinking. I said, I don't believe I can help you. And it was in the beginning of 2005 when the market was starting its turn, and they just had this attitude, and every time I was trying to go away on just a little getaway weekend, that's when they wanted to chat and ask me why their house wasn't selling and all this stuff. So finally I said, I'm going to refer you to someone, and it was a good friend of mine. It was Eileen Drutman, and she's a great agent. And I was like, what am I doing? Poor Eileen, I don't want to refer them to her. I thought I was doing her a favor. And they kind of said to me, well, if I wanted Eileen Drutman, I would have hired her, but I wanted Patty Keck, as if Patty Keck wasn't even in the conversation. And here I am talking to him. But once I said, I'm done, I can't do this with you anymore, they just changed. And I set that boundary. And with phones and with emails and all of that, you really have to set that boundary in the beginning. So if you're in that listing process and you're getting it and the phone rings at 8 o'clock at night, don't answer it. I don't even think they're expecting you to. I think they want to leave a voicemail and they really don't want to talk to you. But if you answer it then, you're going to be answering it through that whole process. And so setting those boundaries for your personal life, I think, are huge. And again, just don't be afraid to walk away, because that toxic client will take you away from everything else. You're going to find real fast your quarter just really drops when you're dealing with somebody that's so demanding, doesn't respect you, doesn't appreciate you. You don't need them. You really don't. How do I emotionally detach from a tough client? You were talking about gifts earlier. I have a gift of compartmentalization. And I can compartmentalize certain things, and 30 minutes later, it will not bother me. I will not allow it to bother me. And so I do think that's a gift. How do I teach that? I don't know. But it's just an ability to not let people bother me. How do you avoid burnout? I think I'm probably a good person to ask that. I mean, because it's this many years. And I don't think that you avoid burnout, but when you recognize it, I think you have to really deal with it. Maybe that means just taking some time off and stepping back and saying, okay, it's time to maybe go on a vacation. Maybe it's time to just do something that just makes you realize that real estate is not the be-all and end-all of your life. It's the means to your life, but it is not your life. I'm going to pass on how do you structure your calendar. You guys are going to be a lot better than that. Where do I maintain balance on a daily basis? It goes back to setting boundaries. And a lot of my career, my kids were little. And if you ask either one of my kids, they would tell you, Mom, you were always there. I never felt like you missed a game or anything. So on my calendar, if I had a kid's game or something, the client would hear, I'm sorry, I've got another appointment at that time. Let's make it this time. What did I appear? I appeared busy. And they don't need to know, hey, I've got a kid's football game or basketball, soccer, whatever I've got to be at. Don't tell them. They don't need to know. Just say, hey, I've got another appointment. Let's do it at this time. They'll respect you more for that.
You've mentioned the word boundaries a few times, and it's an excellent word. There's a fabulous book by a friend of mine, actually, John Townsend, Dr. John Townsend. He's in South Orange County. He wrote that book, and it certainly helped me to draw those boundaries, because in real estate, many times you don't want to say no, right? You always want to say yes. But very good read, very good read.
Yeah. Do you think you can have it all in real estate? Depends on what all is. I wouldn't do anything else. The reason that I, at such a young age, knew I was going to go into real estate was my mom was selling, and I saw what she did right, and I saw what she did wrong, and tried to do the opposite in most cases. Never did even go to work with her. I just went to the other side of town. But I believe I've had it all. I mean, you guys, we're in a fantastic profession. The sky is the limit. There is nothing. There is no limit to what you can't do in this profession, more so than any other job I can think of. So, yeah, I kind of do feel like I've been able to have it all.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing. Both Nicole and Gary excel in time management, so it's maybe a great place to pick up. Certainly you can add anything on work-life balance, but...
Go ahead.
Do you want me to take my calendar and break it down per minute? My calendar is simple, and it hasn't really changed for the past several years. I get up early every morning, and I'm either on my knees praying or reading the Bible. Then I do a workout, then I feed the dogs, then I go surfing, and then from there I'll have my appointments laid out of what I need to do. So I have time blocking. I use paper. I don't have it with me. Most people are not using paper anymore. They're using their calendars on their phone. And I tried that when I missed appointment. It didn't work, and I went back to paper. So I like to see things, and I like to see the whole week. And I do keep that calendar open on the seat of my car. And if I have to pull over and look at it and write somebody in, I know exactly how long an appointment is, or how long a showing is. And if I'm downtown showing properties, I know how to schedule it, and I'll set it up. And as far as time management, my daughter will enter in all the streets and addresses that need to go into my GPS, which is in my car, and I'll have her set that up for me. So everything is time blocked, and I work Monday through Saturday. I take Sundays off. Same way with Patty. If somebody wants something, and I know, there's a time at 3 o'clock that somebody's going to be calling me, I'll either set that up or at a later time, or I'll actually tell people I've got an appointment from 3 to 5. Don't call me, I'll call you at 6 o'clock. But it's usually I try not to answer the phone after 6 because that's family time. So I think everybody can pretty much time block.
So it sounds like discipline is going hand in hand with your time management.
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Nicole, would you like to add anything?
I think what they said was great,
Okay.
Yeah.
definitely.
We're going to move on to reputation, followed by presentations. In our industry, reputation is huge, and I know that all three individuals to my left here have great reputations, and I know it's contributed to their business. So some of the things I wanted to inquire was, how has maintaining your reputation contributed to your sales career? When has your reputation helped your sales? Or when has it hurt your sales? Why do you feel reputation is so important? What do you do to build your reputation in the community? And how important do you feel online reputation or online reviews are right now? We'll start with you, Patty.
If we don't have a good reputation, we ain't got nothing. It is absolutely essential. And I do these kind of things, and at Seacoast and stuff, to kind of get to know agents in the community and the networking and everything. And just let's just take one practical reason you want a really, really good reputation and that people want to work with you. And that is, it's a competitive, lot of offers when I've got a buyer and I'm going up against, 6 other offers or whatever it is, and that agent knows me, and they know that I answer my phone, they know that I'm going to carry my side of the deal, they know I'm going to treat them fairly, they know that it's going to be a professional transaction. For me as a listing agent, I'll choose that agent over an unknown if things are close. They don't even have to be equal, but I'll recommend to the seller, look, it may be a few thousand less or something, but this agent is going to get the job done. This other one, I just don't know. Or if I do know and it's a bad reputation, it'll go that direction too. People with bad reputations in this business, when I'm in charge of the listing and I can give advice and stuff to the client, they don't win. And I just think it's huge. Well, I kind of answered all those questions just now.
You did, very well.
Let's just talk about online. We really go after online testimonials and reviews. At the end of the transaction, we actually send them a link to both of them and say, if you feel that you had 5-star treatment, we set it up, we set the tone, we want 5 stars, and all of that. We'll say, we hope that's how you feel, we'd love, and we just set it up. And so that's huge because people go to that, and they really do. I do not buy sponsored ads on Yelp or any of those because, you guys, if you go to a Yelp or something like that and you see sponsor, I don't know if you're like Rachel and I, but we just go right past it and go to the organically, high list. So I don't buy those either. Matter of fact, I don't know if we have a financial side to this thing. My business expenses are very, very low. The percentage is under 20%, and that is intentional. I don't just, like you're saying, a shiny object. It will not make you more money, but it will take you down if you don't have the business coming in, if you've got all of those different monthly expenses of things that you think.
I'm glad you shared that because you're still embracing the online presence and the reviews, although you're not buying into the programs and the sales pitches.
Yeah.
And that's important for people because many times they don't realize that they don't have to spend any money to utilize the technology.
And social media is very inexpensive. We'll boost Facebook posts and things like that, which is very inexpensive, but we definitely utilize all of the things available related to the internet now. And you have to. Website, go back and look at your website occasionally just to make sure it's up to date. I keep a resume of my whole career updated every year so that, you're going out for a job when you go for a listing, you might as well bring your resume along and have it updated and professional and
that's where they're checking your resume online.
Yeah.
Good. Nicole, you have a lot of experience with online reviews, working with Redfin as long as you have, and why don't you share a little bit about reputation in general?
Sure. And I think, like Patty said, you want to have a great relationship in your field with your peers, with other agents, but for me that extends out well beyond just agents. I want good relationships with escrow companies, lenders, vendors. It only helps the client and usually the sale if you treat everybody through the whole process, whether it's the handyman that stops by to do touch of paint or the title person that I don't really know that well. You treat everybody like you're going to run into them again. It's a small city, and you probably will.
Yeah.
Also, don't think people aren't Googling you. They are. I used to think like, oh, like I don't Google people, because I really don't. Really, I just don't. If it's a relationship, someone says like, call Gary, I call Gary. But I know that people are Googling me. They're looking at my website. They're reading those online reviews. Your digital reputation also matters. I would say, and one of the questions, how has your reputation hurt you? I will get feedback every now and then. Oh, I thought you only did high end, or oh, I thought you only did coastal, because a lot of my online presence is oceanfront, and look at this pretty house. So that's been something I'm trying to make, and I'm working with web design guys to make it a little more well-rounded. And the same thing with the reviews. Ask them. They're happy to do it. Ask them before it closes, because then they're really distracted. So before it closes, before they're like, oh, the keys, and they go over there, and the paint, and the car, and the termite people, and everyone's flying around, send that link to them. Give them a sample of a review. A lot of times I think they feel like, I don't know what to say, I'm not really sure. Just give them a sample, send them the link, make it, like Patty said, tee it up for them. And I love that. Like, if we've earned 5-star reviews, they put it in their head. So super critical to have that online presence.
Good. Gary?
Yeah, I think if you think of your business or yourself as a restaurant, you can see a lot of, if you go to Yelp, you'll see a lot of restaurants that you thought were good, but then, oh gosh, it's only got 3 stars, so I'm probably not going to eat there. Or they're thinking the same thing of you, right? If you don't have at least 4.5 or 5 stars, guess what? I can find another agent, just by walking out the door, because we're everywhere, right? So I use, as far as my own presence, I use LinkedIn a lot, and I've really kind of buffed out that LinkedIn front page so people can see my whole career, from working at restaurants to Avnet to being in real estate for so many years. It's all there, and it's where I spend my time, my charities. It's all on one sheet. So if you're going into a listing presentation, that's usually the link that I'll send them first. And I really don't have to say anything after that. And then the Yelp reviews, I've only had one negative Yelp review, and that's my own fault. I should have never got into a rental. So I learned my lesson, right? No mobile homes, no rentals. So jot that down, put that on the back page.
Good. Well, good segue with what you said about, for a listing presentation, almost being like a resume as you're walking in the door.
Yeah.
That's our next section. And these presentations that we're talking about apply to both sellers and buyers when you meet them and you're presenting your services. So here are the key questions. What percentage of your business is buyers versus sellers? And please walk us through your listing presentations, or if you do mainly buyers, you could walk us through your buyer presentations. What materials that you use during those presentations. And then any common objections and how you handle those objections. We touched on commission already, but maybe some of the other objections that come up during those presentations. If you do work with buyers, we're asking that you would also share if you use buyer-broker agreements. And if so, why? And if not, why? So Patty, can we start with you?
Sure. It says, what percentage of my business is buyers versus sellers? I'd say 75-25, but the 75%, 75% listings. And of the buyers, the majority of those buyers are actually my sellers that are buying. And the other few would be from an open house or referral type thing like that. I might be a little off. It might be more like 60-40, but close enough. You don't want me to walk you through my listing presentation because it's way too long. And I'm trying to shorten that up. But we have recently been changing it all up. And in 1990, I bought my first laptop for $6,000 and hated it after about 6 months, and then didn't really use an electronic instrument at all during a listing presentation until this year. And Rachel has done a great job of putting together on just a basic iPad, iPad Pro, I think it is. And so now I use it as kind of a backdrop. And it just shows all the different things that we do, samples. I mean, all of our properties have custom websites. All of our properties have, for the majority of them, have drone photography, as well as we're moving into videos and things of that nature now. We just a lot of, the bells and whistles of the technology they really like. Do they help sell a house? No, but they do get you help get the listing. And so I do think photos are huge. We're very big proponents for staging. So we spend a lot of time talking about staging, showing pictures of befores and after. And that before and after is combined with staging along with photography, because we'll show them, you know, something that, like, for example, it might be an expired listing that we took over, and after, you know, the other agent having it for 120 days, we'll sell it with multiple offers in 5 days, and we'll explain why. And that all has to do with more of the staging and the various things of that nature. If I had to think of what bullet points I really hit on in a listing appointment, is I do walk through the property with them, and I don't take notes, but I tell them, I say, once we have all the paperwork signed and everything, then I'll go through with you again, and we'll go through all these, and I'll take, you know, we'll get it all dialed in. For right now, I just want an overview. It speeds things up, and it sets that, if you're constantly saying closing statements such as that, it'll really help you so that they're not surprised at the end when you've got the paperwork right there. Never, ever, ever, ever show up to a listing appointment, even if they tell you, we are not making a decision today. Do not show up without listing contracts in your hand. Even if they're not, if the price isn't filled out. I rarely go with the price filled out or the commission filled out. Now, you might think, oh, is the commission not filled out because you're going to go under 5%? No, the commission's not filled out because it may be a situation where I go at 6%. And I have a price point adjustment on my commissions. Anything under 800,000 is usually about 6%, and over that, it's the 5. The commission's usually the last thing, and half the time I forget to even talk about it. I'm the one that usually brings it up. I just went silent.
Battery, maybe? Did we go silent?
So I'll just talk really loud. As far as recently, I just having a lot of conversations about commissions when that does come up, and your ability to read body. Can you guys hear me? Your ability to read body language and kind of understand what they are really looking for in an agent. I'll ask that question, what's the most important thing that you're looking for in the real estate agent that you hire? And then listen and then take notes. Whether you write anything important or not, just let them know that you really care about what they're saying there. And the number one thing they say, honesty. We just want somebody that we can trust.
Excellent, excellent. And how about yourself, Nicole?
Sure. Is mine on?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. I would say the percentage tends to fluctuate, but I'm going to say conservatively, I'm usually 60% buyer, 40% seller, and that can vary. Same thing, I think walking you guys through my listing presentation maybe you wouldn't want to hear that. But I always show up.
Just the bullet points.
Yeah,
Do you have a strategy?
Yes, I always show up prepared. I always bring a contract with me. Even if they say like, oh, we're thinking about selling a year from now, I bring it with me just in case. Again, the sales skills, you always want to assume the close, the presumptive close. As I'm walking around, when we list, I'll get back to you. I'll bring a stager. I'm finding a reason to set that next appointment every single time. I assume that, why wouldn't they? That's I don't want to come off with an ego, but you assume they're going to be working with you. And then as far as presentation, I do a lot with buyers also. I treat them just like a seller. Every time I go out, when I first meet them, they get a really nice folder. They're going to learn about the company. I put information in there about myself, pieces of value for them. I have a printout with a beautiful cover page, all the homes we're going to see, full photos, full color. I learned that from yours truly over here. Whether I'm showing them one house or 10 houses, or I've met with them 10 times before, they get that treatment every single time. I have snacks in the car, there's water, there's something to drink, there's something to eat. It's extra work. I'll bring them a coffee. Hey, can I bring you guys a coffee? And half the time I'm like, I don't have time to bring them a coffee. Why don't I just offer? But they're so excited, and it sets that tone, and that's what I want with my buyers. I want them to have 5-star service, whether it's a buyer or seller. So I treat both the same with the equal levels of respect. Buyer broker agreement, I used to use those all the time, and they just signed it. They just did, and I got away from that. I think I need to get back to it, so I don't use that currently. I think it's a great tool. It just shows why would you take a listing without a listing agreement? Same thing with a buyer. So I think that's...
Gary, you work a lot with buyers, so can you share from a
Yeah.
presentation side?
That's actually shifted. I used to work a lot with buyers, and now, at least this quarter, people are calling me, and my presentation's really short because they go, Gary, I need to list my house. Can you put it on the market next week? And I'm all, no, wait, it's going to take time and preparation, and these are the things that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
If it is a new client and I have to start fresh, then I do use the Solutions for Selling Your Home, which I don't know if a lot of you use that, but we have a packet that you can buy that Andrew has spent many years on just preparing and putting together. Just buy that packet and going through the Solutions to Selling Your Home. Just by turning the page, you're pretty much almost guaranteed to get the listing. It's very professional. It's all ready. All you need to do is put your comps in there, and like Nicole said, she's got probably the About Me one-sheeter with Megan's beautiful picture of her and myself. So it's already done for you. If you don't want to go out and recreate something, we've already got a packet. You can use that. It's really simple. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, and it, again, is at your hands, but you have to use it, and you have to know how to use it. So we'll do another session, an interview about best practices, and we can bring Angela Tips up as well to talk about her 6% commissions. Did you have something else to add?
Is this packet available for non-AARE?
It might confuse the client a little bit, but yes, we love to share all of our information. So the next section here is prospecting and farming and communication. And we're going to combine these sections because technically they're the same thing. When you get on the phone to prospect, or if you're going to knock on doors or go into your farm and solicit for business, it is a form of communication. And what I've discovered after 20 years of studying top producers and getting behind them and making them succeed beyond maybe what they believed they could do, many times we have to start with their communication skills. And what is it that they're communicating to that particular audience, and then work on it. So some of the questions they start off really is identifying, what forms of prospecting do you currently practice? Is it calls, door knocking, direct mail? How many hours a day or per week do you prospect? What time of the day? Do you do it from your home, your office? Do you prefer to be in a quiet environment or around others where there's a little bit of synergy? And how do you deal with the fear and rejection in prospecting or farming? Because that alone is what stops so many people from becoming very, very successful. We have a training that we do, 7 steps to a paycheck. It's all the stages that go down from initial contact to getting the appointment to going to escrow to closing that escrow. And the number one challenge for agents is the first few stages. And that's that initial contact, or what do you say when you get them on the phone, breaking in and creating that new relationship. So as far as communication, we're asking, do you prefer phone, text, email, written, face-to-face, with groups, or just one-on-one, and why? And what really has been the most effective form of communication in your business? And what do you say when you've been out of communication for an extended period of time, which Patty touched on earlier. So again, anything you want to share on prospecting or farming, and specifically how communication relates to that?
Okay, we're going to see, oh, it does work.
Yeah, just go
Okay,
ahead. Push it up there.
The forms of prospecting, believe it or not, I prospect my database because it's quite large. And so instead of going out and going after new people and stuff, it's large enough that I do prospect from that. And that sounds kind of silly, but that's where all of my calls are coming from and are generated from. It starts with the call. There's nothing more powerful than that handwritten note.
One of the few things we have hired is it's an email type of service, and I couldn't even tell you the details on it, but I really like the content. So that's just a little ping. But that to me is not prospecting. That's just, pushing a button and it happening. We've had Rachel out door knocking around our listings and just asking for the kids' ages in the area, telling them a new listing is coming on. Again, having something to talk to them about makes it easier for us. And so telling them about a new listing, that type of thing helps a lot. Direct mail, expensive, effective if you're consistent. And I do it, but I mean, we're talking 5,000 at a time and pretty consistently, but it's return. I'm really reconsidering it because its return on investment is really not very good. I'm just too embarrassed to tell you how many hours per day or week I prospect. So can we just pass over that one?
A lot or a little?
Not enough. So totally not enough. It says here, where do you prospect? Home or office, quiet place? I love this question because it makes you think about, I'm very intentional about where I do it because I have found that when I'm in the office, I lose every creative thought in my body. I cannot function inside the office. And at my desk, I'm either, you can be effective on email, but just limit it to a certain amount of time. And I do prospect via email as well. The phones are obviously the best, but the times have changed. People don't answer their phone. They read the voicemail that you leave. And so it's just a different way, but all these different touches all pay off. How do you deal with fear and rejection? You just keep doing it. You just pick it up and you do it the next time. The people really aren't going to do anything to you. It's just in your own head. And the chances are they really do want to talk to you and hear from you. And that's probably my biggest thing is like, oh, they're busy. They don't want to talk to me. And then I call them and they're like, oh, I'm so glad you called. And we had this great conversation. So every time I do it, I always walk away feeling a lot better. I just don't do it enough. If I could change one thing about my business, that would be it. One thing that separates me in my prospecting or farming from other agents, they probably do it more, is again, we're very consistent with the people that are on our A list and stuff. So I don't think you need 500 people sending you referrals. If you just get 50 or even a little bit less than that, that will keep you very, very busy. So don't try to spread yourself out too thin over too many people, but really focus on the few that are more likely to refer you.
Mm-hmm. Words of wisdom. Nicole?
I think just to piggyback on what Patty said, not being afraid to really look at your database and say, okay, who are my A clients? I want to treat everyone the same and all. I don't have as big a database as you, but it's too much. You have to focus on who are the people who know, like, and trust me, who I have a relationship with, who are likely to send me business, who have sent me business before, and I focus my efforts and attention on that group. I'm staying in touch with the rest of my database, but I'm really intentional with phone calls and visits, handwritten notes, pop-bys with my top. That's really where I focus most of it. Prospecting, I've gotten better since I've started coaching because I don't want to be embarrassed and not have my numbers, but I would say probably like an hour a day on a good day, where they really are looking for 3. And how do you have time to prospect 3 hours a day? You have someone helping you, you have a team, and you delegate. There's no possible way, I don't care who you are, to do 3 hours of prospecting a day, and it's not possible unless you have help. At least someone correct me if I'm wrong. With fear and rejection, it's picking up the phone. I remember Tom Ferry, they're home, they're happy, they're waiting for my call. I still say that to myself. They're home, they're happy, they're waiting for me to call. And they are half the time. And they may not be waiting for me to call, but they're happy to hear from you. They're excited. I'm like, yeah, they like me. I remember, that's why I'm calling. Like, we had a great, wow, I love my clients. Call them. They're thrilled to hear from you. And if somebody's mean, they're not going to be mean. But if you're doing cold calling, that's hard. That's what John Winshaw, next. I remember John helping me with expired calls once, and I called him and I was like, oh, this guy was super mean. And John's like, what's his number? Let's call him back. And I was like, really? And he's like, oh yeah, this will be fun. I'll do it. And he called the guy, and John just was just not fazed, and that has always stuck with me. We weren't calling him to pick on him and be nasty. I wanted to be, but John he made it fun. It's okay. They're having a bad day. Like everyone's maybe having, you catch them on an off day. Do not let it bog you down. Next. You've got 50 other clients that love you. Move on. So
Great.
That's my advice.
How about you, Gary? You're a high-level communicator and do a lot of prospecting.
Yeah, I find it, whatever it is, I just try and get in front of people. And I know Nicole hates the word belly to belly, but I like to, you're belly bumping somebody, but it's gross. But you do. You have to, whether you're in your pajamas or not, you have to get outside your house and you have to meet people. And if that takes walking your dog, going to Vaughn's, whatever, you just have to stay in front of people. And that also hones your skills too, your people skills and how to talk to people. I just started door knocking recently, which I've always hated, but I used to have, I live in Carmel Valley, and Richard Stone used to come. Does everybody know what Richard Stone is? He used to come to my house. He stopped coming to my house once he figured out I was there, of course. But so now I'm doing door knocking, and I find it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And people actually the people that do open their doors, they want to talk to somebody. Whether they're lonely, I don't know why they want to talk to us, but they do. And it's more fun if you go out with somebody else, not just doing it on your own and taking the full, rejection, because it is a next thing. Same with phone calls. If you get that phone call and it's bad, and it just bums you out, click next and go to the next one really quickly. John does it, 500 times a day versus our little measly numbers are. John's used to it, and he's taught us a lot of great phone skills. So you haven't seen John in action, find out where he is, and even if it's in Temecula, go drive and watch how he works, because he's really good at it. What haven't we covered? Anything else that I missed that you didn't talk about?
No, I think you did well. We're going to do one final question for our panel here, and we're going to open it up for Q&A with the audience. So get your questions ready. This is the time. So we're going to combine these last two sections and just ask each panelist, with your career in reflection and your career moving forward, what's been the most influential thing in your career maybe that you could share with the audience here? What maybe your top mistakes that you've made that you wish you could go back and do over again? What advice would you have for a newer agent at the early stage of their career? When did you feel like you made it, and why? And any aha moments or any career obstacles that you overcame, if you want to share that. And also looking forward, what are your goals? Patty mentioned succession. That's where many agents are at. They've had a illustrious career, they've built a great database, but now how do you turn that into passive income, right? That's a challenge. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, maybe some of your personal goals, and if you do plan to retire, when that would be. So Patty, why don't you start, career and reflection, and moving forward, then we'll open it up to questions for the audience.
Wow, lots on this topic, and very on my mind all the time right now. Where it says, what was a game changer for my business? I would say that in 1990, I went to a Mike Ferry half-day seminar. And in my mind, I thought $100,000 was my income, that I couldn't go past that. And so Mike stood up on the stage and he said, who in here has sold 50 homes a year or less? And then he kept going from there. And I kind of raised my hand, and you know what he did? He spit on the stage. And he said, well, what are you doing the rest of your time? And I went, wow. And I wasn't even doing 50 deals at that time. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? He's right. And something happened in my mind that broke through this little box that said, okay, you can do anything. And from then on, my business just took off, and there was no limit. And I remember the first time I hit $1 million income, I went, wow, I think I hit that new box. Mm-hmm. It was just a really cool, and it wasn't a box. At that moment, I just felt like, so if you ever set limitations on yourself, do whatever you can to break through those, because they're only your limitations. They're not reality. What mistakes? We don't have enough time in the day to tell you the mistakes I've made. One of the things, when I was 23 and I moved here to San Diego, I started buying real estate. And I bought down at Mission Beach a duplex and a triplex over in Ocean Beach, and attracted every drug dealer in the world. I mean, at one point, one of what they did to this property was 20 coats of black paint. And when I walked in, there were all these holes in the ceiling with hair hanging out of it. And I thought, how'd they do that? Well, they were 8-foot ceilings, and they were so stoned that they were jumping and hitting their heads on the ceiling and stuff, and poured concrete down and all of this stuff. And I was like, really? This is what property management is like? So I sold it all and just bought better personal residence. That was a mistake. I should have continued to purchase real estate instead of just putting it into, retirement funds and things like that. So that would be a word of advice, not what you're thinking of, but on the financial end, invest in what you know. And as far as my goals for this stage of my career is to really set it up so that Rachel can take over this business seamlessly and be as successful as I've been. And that's why I've hired these coaches, and that's why I really want to do that right. I am planning on retiring probably in 2020, but that's a secret, so don't tell anybody. And where do I want to be in 5 years? I've been thinking about that a lot. And there's going to be 3 homes, one at the lake house that I haven't bought yet, and one at our Mexico house that I've had for 20 years, and then a place here. And from there, I would like to coach and mentor virtually by phone and just pick a few select people. But what I want to do on that is, it's one thing to take somebody from selling $10 million a year to $20 million a year, but it's a whole nother thing if you can teach them how to take that $10 million increase and really make it count in their future by personal finance, by investing, by planning ahead, by how about living below your means. There were too many years that I made a great income and I spent even more than I made. And I didn't plan for stupid things like taxes. At the end of the quarter or the year, I'd be like, wow, I made a whole lot. And then all of a sudden I'm hoping I didn't make that much because of the taxes. Now it's a whole different story. Every single check that comes in, the gross check gets 30% taken out of it day one. Now, is our tax bracket 30%? I used to think it was higher than that, but when you really look at it, especially know your tax law. In 2018, if you make $250,000, does anybody know what your percentage is going to be? I'll tell you. It's going to be 19% is what your federal tax bracket is going to be. So the 30% just allows for state, and it allows for going towards retirement. And then I have another fund of 15% that goes off of that, and blah, blah, blah. I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. I've led his and facilitated his Financial Peace University courses, and that alone changed my life. So on that financial side, I could go on and on and on, because if you get to my age and you're done and you don't have anything, that's a problem. So
thank you for sharing that. I think that's profound wisdom, and I hope the audience is paying attention.
Yeah, that living below your means and tucking it away. And the phrase that I've heard and said more than anything else, well, one more sale will take care of that. New car, semester at school for my kid, all of that. To live debt-free is such freedom. It really is freedom.
Excellent.
So,
Nicole?
I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oh, I think that's great advice. We all can tell when we're in a transaction with someone that really needs it to close. And I think the clients pick up on that too. So I think the most influential thing in my career, who or what, he's sitting right there. I think having someone that really believes in you is everything. When I first met Andrew, he said, let's go drive around and look at houses on the coast. And I thought, okay, well, that doesn't sound real productive, but okay. And he drove, and I sat in the car with him, and he said, someday you're going to sell these homes. And I remember being like, okay, sure. And lo and behold, I did and I do. And having someone, and that's what I love about our company, and that's why I'm up here today. I put my pants on one leg at a time in the morning, just like everyone else. We're not special, but I want to be there for others, and like Andrew's been there for me, is to impart just showing up, making that phone call, save your money, treat your clients with respect, and I don't think it's the sky's the limit. I mean, that's what I love about what we do. And if you save your money and you are diligent, you can take a little time off or feel a little bit burned out like I have, and kind of restructure and do some coaching and really see where I fit in. And that's been a real blessing for me to be able to do that. And I can't emphasize what Patty said enough about saving and investing. We're self-employed. No one's funneling, no one's matching our 401k yet, right? But
if they'll let me.
If they'll let him,
Exactly.
He's trying.
That's right.
And so, take advantage of people. I've learned so much from all of you guys, and that's what I love. Again, I love about AARE is I'll pick up the phone and I'll have a question, or I'm not too proud to ask Robert, hey, help me, I've got this going on, or Gary, or Mindy, or any of you out there. So I know I'm kind of talking all over the place, but I think you guys are influential in my career also, and just remembering that you're not alone out there. It can be a really lonely business. You can get in your head, and in your head is a scary place to be, or at least mine is. So leaning on each other, and we're super blessed to do what we do. Enjoy it.
Good. How about you, Gary?
Yeah, I'll be brief on the career and reflection. I just wrote down trusting in God. A lot of agents kind of worry, like, gosh, when's the next paycheck coming? What if I can't make my mortgage? It's all about worry. And I wrote down Matthew 6:25, which is ingrained on my Bible. If you guys, I won't read it to you, but it basically talks about worry, and you really don't need to if you trust in God. But write that down and look that up later. As far as the career moving forward, I'm excited about it. I'm a little bit different when it comes to retirement. I'm not really planning on retiring. I just want to have a great time and grow this company. And I can see that this model, which I love, I would love to see it continue. I know Andrews has his eyes on the rest of California, and maybe putting me on Maui on just a separate island where I can just grow that business there. That's just something I think that Andrew needs to know. But
Preach it. All right.
yeah, you got to just preach it to I put down, I wasn't put on this earth to retire. Everybody's got a gift, and maybe retirement's not the right word, but you just kind of want to put yourself out there. And I'm sure Patty's not going to just sit in her house and feed her dogs and her cats all day. She's probably got a lot of great plans that she's going to do, and maybe some traveling. So we have a lot of opportunities in this company, and I'll say generous giving. I really love that program that Andrew put together, and I really want to grow that into part of my career. And bucket list, I did my bucket list. I mentioned to Andrew and Nicole, surf pipeline. I got that out of the way. I don't need to do that again. I probably will, but I do want to travel more, get to France, get to England again, and travel to Israel. That's the next bucket list for me.
Excellent, excellent. One of the reasons we put this section in for the audience is to see what successful top-producing agents are able to do because of the hard work and the seeds that they sowed earlier in their career. And hopefully it will inspire and motivate you to do the same. Now we're going to open it up to the audience at this time, and I see a few hands. Why don't we start here? Can we get this lovely lady a microphone,
And please remember, no stupid questions. Just
Because
Keep
there's
it rolling.
only stupid answers.
right. Keep it smart.
and please stand, just so we can see you. Excellent.
Hi, you mentioned earlier that it's a changing market. What do you see happening in the marketplace as far as price point
I
and
can share.
activity and where
Actually-
things are going?
So I'm going to ask Patty to share. We've had a one-on-one conversation, and then I'll do a wrap-up. What do you see in the market, Patty?
Well, what I see and what I hope for, maybe two different things, but what I see right now is, what are we, down 29.3% this year in sales as far as listings coming on and things of that nature. And people are kind of paralyzed right now. It's just like they feel like, well, where am I going to move? And what am I going to get for that? And they don't realize the value of their property when they're thinking that. So I think anything that we can do to just keep it flowing, and as agents, this isn't really your question, but I'll say this, as agents, maybe we want to consider taking contingent offers on somebody selling their house if it's a real sellable property. It will open up the market for us if we do that. I believe, based off of fact, that interest rates will be going up. Working in an environment with a 21% interest rate when I started, and now seeing it at 4, and people panicking, knowing that it's going to be at 4.5 and 5, is crazy. But think about it. Everybody's maxed out at the interest rate that it is. And so if you do increase that 0.5 or 0.75%, now their amount of home to buy is much less. And so I do think that will slow down our increased pricing and increase our inventory. So that's why I'm a big proponent for increasing the interest rate. I'm going to defer to you, Andrew, as far as where do I see the market in terms of, I agree with Gary, certain companies are not going to go away. I think we're going to have to deal with it and also embrace it to some extent. But I think it's healthy. I mean, it doesn't scare me if the market changes 180 degrees, because, guys, that's when we get market share. That's when we grow, and it doesn't matter what the market is. It's up to you. Doesn't really matter.
I'm glad you shared that last point, whether the market is a retail market like it is today, or a short sale market, or an REO market. There's always a market. I'm going to talk just from the perspective of market cycles. So the only thing you can do as a historian or an economist, if you're trying to predict where the market's going to go, is to find a parallel in a previous market cycle. And for example, in 2006, we had to go back decades to find a parallel where you had that many subprime loans given out in a big bubble. We don't have that today. So the odds on a repeat of 06 are not probable. What we do have today is a big boom in the tech industry. Huge. Very similar to the tech boom of 1999 and 2000, where we had all these technology companies, high-flying stocks, very overvalued, in my opinion. And when that market softened after 9/11, 2001, 2002, it was a recession. What it did is it actually pulled the real estate market down about 10 or 15%. It wasn't a big pullback. It left a lot of markets on the property, or a lot of properties on the market for an extended period of time, which was different. But here's the silver lining. Everybody rushed out of the stock market because the NASDAQ was falling. And where do you think they put all their money?
Real estate.
Real estate. So that led to the greatest boom we've seen in 02, 3, and 4. So I believe we're actually in a great place. We might be at a pause, like you suggested, a little bit of a paralyzing environment. But as soon as the NASDAQ specifically, that's what I would keep your eye on. As soon as that falls, that money will get pulled out, and people are going to start looking for hard assets to put it into. Hopefully it's real estate, not commodities, but in my opinion, it'll be one or the other. Let's move to another question. Robert?
Hello, Robert Sizer, AARE. I just wanted to actually confirm something that Patty had spoken on, and that is building relationships and reputation. Patty and I have had the occasion to work together in the past, and there was a situation whereby she was the listing agent and there were 7 offers on the table. So when I communicated with Patty, she knew my reputation and me personally, and was able to speak to me on that level and say, this is what we need to make this happen. And because we had that professional relationship, my clients were able to get their offer accepted with confidence. I was representing the buyer and her the seller. So I think it's really important to establish those relationships, like Patty had said, and your reputation. So when some agent is calling you, they are aware that they want to do business with you, that's going to be half the battle right there. And just wanted to make that point with Patty, and great having you here today, Patty.
Thank you for
you.
sharing. Any other questions? All right.
They're
Barbara,
hungry.
did you have one?
I don't really have a question, but I want to say that this is a great panel. We got a lot of great tips. And in reference to the way you started out, talking about Billy Graham, I left some pamphlets up front if anyone is interested. Franklin Graham is going to be having a really grand crusade May 20th in Escondido. I'm going to be working with a prayer team for that. And if you know anybody who might be interested, or any groups, please take some of the pamphlets. They're really expecting big things from this. And he had been working on this for 20 years, and Escondido was his first city of choice, and it will be in several other cities. It's Pray California, and we need a lot of prayer, I think, in our state. But yeah, please, if you're interested, take some brochures.
Thank you for sharing that. Last opportunity. Any questions before we break? All right, would you, Christine?
Hi. Just wondering, who do you think is the best to ask for reviews? Which sites from your clients?
I put them on all, usually I send them a link to Yelp, Zillow, Redfin, if it's a Redfin sale. So the more that they, and I just tell them to copy and paste that review on each one, so it's pretty easy for them to do. And the more reviews I get, the better. That's me personally.
I picked just one, Zillow, and if you don't mind, Facebook. But I want them, I want to build it all out. That's probably, I mean, ideally you have them everywhere, but for me, I've just focused on one.
Yeah,
It may bite me. I don't know.
that's not the correct answer.
Sorry.
How about you,
The
Patty?
correct answer is, Rachel, what do we do? Yelp and Zillow, and now we're asking Facebook as well?
Yeah, and Google.
And Google.
Oh, Google, yeah.
Yeah. The reason I think you want to be diversified on that is if you're not showing up at all and they're looking on that site and you're not there at all, even if it's 1 or 2 5-star, you're probably better off switching it that way. And then I send out a pre-listing package before every listing, and we actually print out, and part of that pre-listing package is all of our different testimonials printed out so that they can read it there. So we're not leaving it to them to go and find us. We're putting it in their face.
That's great.
Very good. Any other questions? Angela?
Can I sit? I'll sit. So for the reduced commissions under 2.5% for buyer side, I typically don't show them. But now you're just seeing more and more. It used to be 1 or 2, and now you're seeing a 10. And I don't feel like we as agents should pay for the, lack of a better term, incompetence on the other the listing agent side, who's putting it on for 1.5 or 2%. But when you do a lot of referral business, especially agent referrals or the generous giving, and it's 25%. So thoughts on whether you show them or don't show them?
So the question is, if you're showing buyers property and you're scanning the MLS and there's properties that have less than a full commission, are you showing those to your buyers?
Well, can I jump in on
Yep.
this? So related to the client recently that said, the buyers are going to find it anyway. Sometimes you have no choice but to sell it, and that's one, or to show it. But that's one of the reasons that that I'm hoping that this market, if you've got 7 properties to show that are available, and you really are only going to show 4 or 5, what's the first one that's going to go out, and you're not going to show it? It's the one that's under the 2.5. So I actually use that in the conversation with the listing presentation, saying, let's go the other way. Let's put 3% when everybody else is at 2.5 and get everybody showing it instead of being the one that they're looking for a reason not to show a property. That's their best reason not to. And it's human nature. I mean, they're working hard. And I think, do you guys find that if you have it under 2.5% and you see that and you have to show it, I personally go in kind of begrudgingly, and I try to negotiate a much better deal for the buyer so that that seller gets that 0.5% or whatever it is lost anyway. And I'll state that. And I guess from the rules standpoint, we cannot call the agent and say, by the way, I'm not going to show your listing because it's at 2%, but wouldn't it be fun if we could?
You know, you can do that by using that CBC form. If you present your offer, write the CBC form, you saw it's 2%, and you write in, I would like 2.5%, you can present that with your offer.
Is that legal?
It's legal, and they're supposed to present that to their client.
That is tremendously great information,
Yeah.
because I was told it is not. That
If I could jump in on that, just because that does
Oh,
happen.
oh, that's the
For
broker
those who don't
record.
know me, I'm the broker. With the CBC, because we actually had this happen recently, it cannot be a condition of submitting the offer. So if you want to negotiate a better commission for yourself, it must be done completely separately, and preferably before you even have an offer to write.
And
So
before you show it, too, is what I understood. Is that correct?
That would be the best way, because then it's not tied to an offer. A lot of times agents say, hey, I'm gonna send you an offer, but only if you sign the CBC. Totally illegal, can't do that, it cannot be tied, it can't be a condition. But if you see a property that's only 2, say, hey, I'm working with a lot of buyers, I'd like 2.5%, can we negotiate that? You can't say, oh, I'm not gonna show it if you don't sign it. But you wanna do it, it has to be completely separate. So just be very careful when asking for increased commissions, that you're not making it contingent for, your buyers are missing out because you wanted an extra 0.5%. So we have to think about the client and their best interest, if that's really the perfect house, regardless if they give you more money or not, that's the house they want. So just be very careful
I
when
think the
you
key
use
is the
those.
transparency, right? And telling the client, they're only offering this, just so you know, I'm gonna receive maybe 30, 40% less than I would by showing another home. What I'd like to do is request a normal commission. The transparency is key in the method, as Tiffany said.
And if you're really ballsy, you can ask the buyer to pay the difference.
There you go. If you have a buyer broker, they're going to be paying the difference, right? So, any other questions before we wrap up? Martha? Can you hand Martha a microphone?
So it's the same topic, and that is I've run into people who will contact me saying that they see properties that are not in our MLS, and that I want to see. So I will contact the listing agent on whatever Zillow or I think there's another brokerage. I don't remember now exactly what happened. The point is that when I contacted the listing agent, they said, "Oh, we don't buy buyer's agent at all. You have to do whatever if you want to get paid, you need to talk to your buyers." So how do you handle a situation like that?
An open listing or ones
No,
that are
they
just
have the listing agreement signed, but then they are only they are not basically they just do not pay buyers
They're not
agents.
cooperating.
they're not
with buyers.
cooperating at all.
Right,
Okay.
none. And in another case, I see in our MLS, and then buyer's agent only gets $1,000. So how do you handle a situation like that? You know your clients like these properties, and it's super low inventory. What are you gonna do?
I think that's where you go with the buyer-broker agreement. If you're going to be in that environment, that's not in this environment. What area do you work?
Oh, it's San Diego, but
Okay,
it
because
pops up here and there.
I haven't seen it around here, and if that's the case, I think we as agents really have to start going to the buyer's broker agreement for compensation, because if the sellers aren't going to pay it, or if you can't negotiate it.
That's right. That's right. Any other questions? In the back? Here.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Pat Whitney. I'm a lender that works with Mindy. I've been doing business with Mindy for about 25 years, and what I'd like to ask you is, what is the number one, say number two thing that you want from your lender?
Hit your timelines. Hit the timelines. I do that, and I'm real happy.
And communication. A lot of lenders will say, oh yeah, we'll be communicating through the whole process, and you won't see a timeline of what's happening. You don't even know, where they're at. Did they order the appraisal? It'd save us a lot of time if we weren't asking those questions. Did you order this? Did you do that? So.
Listing referrals are good.
Oh, there you go. There you go. She's always thinking ahead.
I'm never too busy for your referral.
Any other questions? All right, would you please give a big round of applause for our panel here? Thank you all. Thank you all for your
Thank
time. And at this time, I'm going to invite Jason Dellin, our executive chef, to the stage. He is going to share what we will be eating this afternoon. A few weeks ago,